So it looks like that windstorm helped a little bit. It's not quite in the same position. We'll see. On one hand, it made it worse because the tree fell off the trunk, the base. So I can't pull a base of the tree backwards now. If I could have, I brought the come along and winch, and I could have pulled it back and then had the top of the tree slowly release itself and fall. That's not an option now unless I roll the whole thing over. But it looks like now it might be just that one small, the thinner branch of that thinner trunk. It's dual trunk in that maple, so the thinner one looks like that is the only thing I need to cut, and I get to stay on the other side of the big part of the maple while I'm cutting that, so when the tree falls I'm actually on a safe side. There's no way it could fall on me. So I would say it's probably a slight improvement. So let's go take that thing down. Good thing is the marsh is soft, and as you can see it's almost waist deep, the snow underneath the crust. So I have to keep the snow machine moving. I'll probably, now that I've run over this twice, or 3 times I guess, yeah 3 times, it's actually going to start crusting over. The sun and the cold working on it together should create a fairly good crust on top. Again, I won't be able to stop, and I won't be able to carry too much weight on the first couple of trips past or out, but I think it's probably going to stay solid enough to get the first loads out, and then it'll firm up as the day goes on. Might even if I have to wait till this evening for it to get cold again. What are you doing, Pop? Might have to wait for it to get cold again this evening or tomorrow morning early. Be really solid to pull the machine across with a heavier load. What are you doing, Callie? That is one stubborn tree. There is hardly anything holding that up. It still won't go over. Just a wedge, I guess, from the ground and against that bigger maple, which I don't want to cut down. It's too nice. Still a healthy maple. Don't want to lose it. So I'm gonna have to jack this trunk over this way with a winch. Let's see if I can do that. Jerky. Fatty stuff here for you. Ribs aren't very good date food or filming food. Teeth full of ribs. Man, it's so beautiful out here. I really, truly hate to fire up the chainsaw and cut that cherry, but I'm going to do it. That's what I always talk about. I never really ever planned on using power tools here at this land, at this cabin, but it's just inevitable that working alone I got to the point where I guess it's inevitable, where I got to where I needed to use some power tools to get enough work done to get this place. Well, here we are, almost 2 years, like I said, since we bought the property. In fact, I'd like to look at the date. I bet me, Kelly, and my wife were walking this property, this land, almost exactly 2 years ago to this week, before we bought it. And that's when we found this grove of dead trees and the dead cherry tree here. So, point is that I'm only this far along with the infrastructure buildings of the property, using mostly hand tools. And if I had have milled every single board on the cabin even by hand instead of buying some of that stuff, I wouldn't even be this far. So you do this and I'll continue to cut firewood probably for another year with a chainsaw. And then once I think the workshop's built, I think I'll probably get further away from using anything powered here. But the that outpost camp that I'm going to build next winter probably, or this fall or next spring, whatever, I won't even bring power tools out there. It's not worth the effort of carrying them out there to begin with, but that place I just want completely silent, don't want any power at all, and don't want to disturb the silence, and eventually back to that here. And even when I'm using power stuff, it's so rare. I might use a chainsaw once or twice a week right now. The snowmobile only went out that one time for a pleasure ride when my wife and I filmed that video for the other channel a couple weeks ago. Other than that, it's really just a tool. So for getting back into lakes to go ice fishing, I consider that more of a tool than a pleasure thing. And yeah, firewood and bringing stuff back and forth from where I park to the cabin. It's been kind of helpful. It's not necessary. I don't even do that most of the time. But it's nice if I have something heavier to bring back. So I will, I guess, do that now, cut that up, and then turn everything back off again and back to the cabin and relax. Beautiful out. I love this time of year, actually, February. Even though February's usually our coldest month, we get a lot more sun now that the lakes are frozen. And a lot of our snow around here is lake effect, so it blows off of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron and all the smaller lakes before they freeze. The wind picks up moisture, dumps it, turns it into snow and dumps it on us. So once the lakes freeze, by the end of January-ish, bigger lakes, we typically actually get less, we have less moisture in the air, so we get less snow, and then these cold, crisp, but clear days, and the sun is actually starting to warm up, and I'm noticing that the days are getting noticeably longer. So sun rises earlier, sun sets later, and you know, it's the hope that spring's around the corner. But the heat of the sun anyway at this time of year, especially right now, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's quite nice. I'm in shadow right now, but only because there's a couple of big balsam firs and hemlock. Actually, that's a huge black spruce there too, blocking the sun. But once it clears that, it'll be right on me as I'm cutting up that cedar. So it's going to be warm enough, especially out of the wind and when it's calm like this. All right, I'm going to go to work. Well, that was another humbling day. I keep talking about how much I'm learning out here, and it's certainly no joke. So that last, or the first log that I took over to back to the cabin, that was probably 2 hours ago that I left with it from here. Didn't take the camera with me because I thought I'll just be 15 minutes. I'll dump that one off, come back and get the next load. This is what happens when you're learning something new. I've told you lots of times that I wasn't ever going to have a snowmobile. I think I said something earlier today even. So I make the decision to buy things like snowmobiles, but without experience with them, or much experience. I've been on snowmobiles several times over, well, probably many times, I guess, fishing and stuff over the years, but I've never owned one, and I've never used one just for doing stuff like hauling firewood. So what I underestimated today was the snow conditions and how important it is to lay a good trail. You know, I bought this machine because it can go off trail into this deep snow, and it can, but I had a heavy load of a trailer pulling behind that big cherry log, and you need a solid trail. So I kept sinking through, including right here as soon as I took off. Dug a great big hole in the marsh here. Problem is there's a hard crust, there's some powder, then a hard crust, and then deep powder underneath, like 3 feet of it. So when you break through that crust, going into this soft granular powder, and it just spins. There's no traction down there. The problem is the machine, the rails and the skis and the body undercarriage are hung up on the snow, and the track is spinning, digging a hole down below. Can't get any purchase on the solid ground or solid snow. So I've spent literally 2 hours unhooking the trailer every so often. I got across here after I hooked up there. I got across this meadow pretty good and into the forest, but as soon as I tried to make a turn and go uphill, stuck again. So and then anytime it kind of made me veer off my packed trail, it bogged down again. So I don't know how many times I hopped off, dug out, flattened the trail, then I would go further, and trail getting soft, so I'd tip basically into a tree, so I had to go really slowly and then lean the other way, and then get out, shovel that flat again, and then go over it. So after I did that a few times, I just went back and forth between here and the cabin with no trailer, no sled behind me. Packed it all down, leveled it all out, and now I'm finally back here to get the second log. It's getting late now. Like I said, it's pretty, the days are longer, so the sun's still relatively high, but it's got to be after 3 o'clock, 3 or 4. So that's one of the lessons I learned was about getting a level path or trail back to wherever you're heading all the time, especially when you're alone. If I had a friend with me, then if I got stuck, just help each other out or pull each other out or whatever and keep going. But I'm alone. I have a lot of loads to go with wood here, firewood and lumber. So I want to make probably like 10 trips back and forth, and I need a good trail to do that. So it was worthwhile spending that 2 hours flattening it out. But the other thing is, you got to be aware of two things. First of all, it would be pretty easy for me to get so stuck in a meadow where there's no trees or anything to attach a winch or something to get stuck in there and not be able to get out and then have to walk back. And worse than that, should take almost every layer off, almost down to a t-shirt, when I'm digging out and trying to upright the snowmobile and level out that trail and unhook the thing, because I'm soaking wet with sweat right now. So I took this off and the hat off, but it was still too much. Of course, the problem with that is if I did get stuck out here, if I was further, easily freeze to death. So I think I have my pack on there that's got some survival gear, but it's not fully loaded right now because I wasn't going far, so I don't have all the things I would need to spend a night out here. But it's just a reminder that every time I go out any further than this, make sure I have absolutely everything I need to spend a fairly comfortable night in the outdoors, sleeping out here. And typically much colder than, well, I think it's getting down to minus 18 or something tonight, so it's cold enough. Especially being clear, it's probably maybe even colder than that tonight. Anyway, you got to be prepared for that kind of thing. So in a case like that, like if I got this thing stuck right now and I was miles back in the bush, and I can almost see the cabin from here, so it's not too far. But if I was further back, got it stuck in the meadow here, and it's getting to this time of night, I would have to seriously decide whether it's worth working that hard, building up a sweat, still not getting out, and then being in a position where I'm trying to get a fire started with hypothermia starting to set in and not having a camp set up. So I would say like starting like now or maybe an hour from now, that if I was stuck I would do that. I would just not work so hard, go slowly, moving around, trying to dig out and pull out, like get unstuck and reload and all that kind of stuff so you don't build up the sweat. Put the layers back on as soon as you do stop, and just move slowly enough and be without that urgency that I have to get out. That's why it pays to always be prepared in this situation by having all the gear on board. So if I didn't feel rushed that I absolutely have to get out and get home back to the cabin before nightfall, then I would take my time, not panic, be patient, and probably end up getting out. But at the very least, have the presence of mind to actually get a proper camp set up and stay warm. Now fortunately I've got all my stuff here, chainsaw and saw, handsaw, axe, all the things I would need to get a fire going pretty good here, and lots of dry firewood. So I would be safe here. That's a common thing with snowmobiles. I have to learn a lot more about working with not just power equipment but snowmobile in particular. That just got to be more aware of its limitations and what I need to do to prepare. Also, like I said, being prepared for a survival situation. Lonnie from, what's he call his channel? Far North Bushcraft. He did a video about a year or two ago, and I thought it was a good video at the time, and now I'm just even more aware of it. That he did a video where he snowmobiled out, pretended his snow machine died, and what he would have to do. I think he spent the night there or something. Anyway, valuable video to watch if you're doing this kind of thing. And I don't know, keep watching me, because I'm going to make all the mistakes and keep learning from them, and then hopefully you can learn something from my mistakes. So, humbled again. This place and this wilderness living is a humbling experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. The machine's trying to cool itself down. Otherwise there's no other sound out here. Alright, I'm going to turn this video off. I'll pull a couple more loads of cherry back and then pack it in for the night. The other part of that trail thing is I'm going to let the trail harden a lot more than it is. It's still granular. I need it to pack solid so that I can keep coming and doing trips without having to stop and redesign the trail each time. So tomorrow is going to be cold, sunny and cold again, so ideal to do that. So that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to tune in. Be another video 2 or 3 days from now, and also I've got 2 or 3 videos on the other channel, Sean James channel, if you want to check that out. And then this Friday, of course, I've got my weekly Friday video, which will be a little bit longer and more variety, and a whole kind of summary of what I do here all week, including cooking and stuff like that. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you up at the cabin next time. Take care. We need to go back and get all the gear, okay? Alright, let's go.